Hello everyone, this is POW coming at you with another update. In this update, we're going to be talking about a historic winter storm with blizzard-like conditions, ice, and record cold. So before I do get started, if you do like weather-related content, please subscribe to my channel as I will upload daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm, and I do ask you to share this video with your friends and family on social media. All right, so let's get started. Look at the watches and warnings map for the US. I have never seen anything like this. It is lit up. We've got winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings, winter storm watches for a good chunk of the US, from the Pacific Northwest. I mean, look at, Nebraska, Kansas. So we got the entire state of Oklahoma under a winter storm warning. Every county, all 254 counties in Texas, is in some type of winter weather warning. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. In Louisiana, Mississippi, going into parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, into Virginia. We got a major ice storm going on right now, and up the coast into New Jersey even has winter weather advisory. So we have a lot to talk about, guys. Let's kind of take you through the map this morning. We've got basically three systems. One's actually moving off the coast right now of the Northeast. That's where they have that serious ice storm going on right now in Virginia. There's a lot of ice in that neck of the woods. And back behind it, that's where that second storm is starting to build out in Texas, where they're getting that freezing rain right now, light freezing drizzle in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's 20 degrees. Everything's going to be sticking on the roads for a good chunk of the central and northern parts of Texas this morning into Oklahoma. And then back behind it, we have that other storm that's building in the Pacific Northwest. They've had heavier snows in Portland. Now they had freezing rain, so they're transferring back and forth to freezing rain and snow. Seattle, and then heavier snows into the interior region. So it is just a very active time. So as this continues, moving on into Sunday morning, this storm lifts out. So the first initial storm lifts out to the northeast. It'll spread some more sleet and freezing rain up the I-95 corridor, with snow in upstate New York, getting into Vermont and New Hampshire. And then back behind it, by the time we get into Sunday morning, that Arctic front will start to slowly move southward. We'll start the initial phase of a freezing rain, sleet in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They're already under a winter storm warning. And then they'll transfer to all snow to the panhandle of Texas, and to Oklahoma, and to Kansas, getting into Nebraska, and then heavier snows into the Four Corners regions of Colorado, New Mexico, as well as Utah. And by the time we get into, like I mentioned on Sunday morning, that Arctic air is going to be moving south. And so far, they haven't really tapped into the Arctic air further south, but now they will. And everybody's been dealing with the Arctic air up north in Canada and, the Dakotas and Minnesota. They've had dangerously cold air for like a week now. And that cold air is finally on the move. You got, zero temperatures in Kansas, going almost negative in Oklahoma, and it is negative in Missouri and Illinois and Indiana. So it's some really extreme stuff that's moving south, and it's going to be moving south in a big way. So because by the time we get into the afternoon on Sunday, it's some very heavy snow starting to enter the panhandle of Texas, Wichita Falls, get into, say, Lubbock, pretty much all of Oklahoma. That's why they're covered in winter storm warnings, getting into Missouri, back into Kansas. We've got rain to the southeast. They're not really going to be hit with this Arctic front. And then further south, where they still have that warm air aloft, this has been a very shallow, cold air mass. In every model so far, it's been model busting. They haven't been able to keep up with this cold air, as this is a very rare event, and every single model has been too warm so far. It's always been colder the last 4 days as it continues to move south. And that's why it seems like it's just getting colder and colder, because the models are adjusting. It's just model busting cold, and this is that historic event that is on the table. And as this moves through, yeah, I'm looking at a good chunk of 5 to 8 inches in and around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. On this first initial system, probably 4 inches in Austin, even snow in San Antonio. Just a major ice storm in Houston, and sleet all the way down to the coast. I mean, look at Brownsville. How often do you see freezing rain in Brownsville, or sleet? I mean, this is crazy stuff, guys. I mean, this is something that the South does not see at all, for especially like all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley. I mean, this is a really rare event from them. And look, I mean, they got, Arctic air really entering the picture by the time Monday morning. But that kind of beelines up the northeast. So there's a very sharp gradient of where this cutoff is going to be, because we've got a ridge building into the southeast. And up along that low pressure, that's where we can have that demarcation line of sleet, freezing rain into Louisiana, Mississippi, portions of Alabama, going into western parts of Tennessee, and then Kentucky just gets inundated again with more ice. They just got hit, but unfortunately they're going to be hit again into West Virginia. Parts of even Pittsburgh could have a mixed bag this time. And then further north, I mean, this is where they're going to get some of those heavier snows into Missouri, into Illinois, into Indiana, especially like Ohio. Cleveland's going to get hit really hard from this system. But the winds, when it comes through, we're talking blizzard-like conditions in Texas. You really need a 35 mile per hour wind, and we're clocking anywhere from 30 to 35 miles an hour as heavy snow pours down and temperatures drop in the teens, almost 10 degrees. So that is just something they just don't see for the deep south. And that's the conditions that are going to be on the table by the time overnight Sunday, going into the wee hours of Sunday morning into Monday morning, with blizzard-like conditions happening for a good chunk of Oklahoma into Texas, and then more of a sleet and freezing rain the further south you go in Texas. But man, look on the backside with that Arctic air really hitting hard. There's temperatures as you wake up, and this is where the Arctic air is really going to take hold in the central part of the U.S. We've got 20s and 30 degrees below zero temperatures, not feels like temperatures, for the upper central U.S. into Iowa, getting negatives in Missouri, negatives in Chicago, into Oklahoma, Kansas, even a good chunk of the Panhandle. I mean, even Dallas could drop to near zero, if not almost below zero in parts, even on Monday. And it gets even colder on Tuesday, and then single digits in Austin. I mean, this is some crazy stuff. Teens by the time we get into Monday morning in parts of Houston, say Corpus Christi, all the way down to the deep south. Louisiana experiences 20s, Mississippi, and then Alabama, Georgia for the most part kind of misses out on this Arctic air. But here's the feels like. I mean, this is some dangerous stuff. I mean, this is stuff you just don't see very often. A 40 and 50 below zero wind chill factors in Iowa, and then portions of, getting into a central part of the U.S. all the way down into Kansas, into, Colorado, negatives. I mean, 25, almost 30 degrees below zero feels like in Amarillo. That is some very cold, dangerous stuff. I mean, this is nothing to play with. Pipe bursting type weather. They're just not used to this type in the deep south. I mean, this is the coldest weather in at least 30 years is going to be hitting this area, and some of these areas even longer than that, as the negatives extend all the way down into Houston, even into San Antonio. They're going to be feels like below zero. But as we come out of that system lifts out to the northeast, again, there's that sharp southeast ridge that's going to be building in, but that ice is going to be really prevalent with that warm air aloft as it continues shifting off to the south. Well, then we'll have that freezing rain all the way down into, say, Baton Rouge, getting into portions of New Orleans by then, and a good chunk of Mississippi, going into the northwestern parts of Alabama, further interior regions of Tennessee, but western Tennessee kind of misses, or eastern Tennessee misses out on this. But, into Kentucky, into Virginia, going up the coast in the mid-Atlantic states, into, Pennsylvania by then, New Jersey, coming up the coast and going into Connecticut and Massachusetts. But yeah, then back behind it, we have that other system that's really kind of building in the Pacific Northwest, dumping those heavier snows into Washington, into Oregon, into Idaho, into Nevada by then, as this a very active pattern. We got 2 back-to-back historic storms on the way. Overnight Monday, going into Tuesday, that one initial storm continues up the coast. As this ridge builds, it'll be more transferring to out of the freezing rain, out of the sleet, into more rain along the I-95 corridor, but push the sleet and freezing rain a little bit further north with heavier snow amounts into upstate New York, getting into Buffalo, Albany, New York, and northern portions of Maine by then. And then, back by the northwest, then we have that other storm building in. But by Tuesday night, that's where it just gets really serious. The Arctic air is going to be its peak, basically, that of the cycle. And that these negatives extend all the way down to the deep south. I mean, this is some dangerous stuff. I mean, look at the chunk of negative temperatures for Kansas, Oklahoma. I mean, all of Oklahoma should be below zero. I mean, the all-time record in Oklahoma City is 17 below. I mean, they're probably forecasting like around 12 below that night in Oklahoma City. And even it could drop below zero in Dallas, which would be the first time since 1989. So this hasn't happened in 32 years. Even San Antonio could get down to close to 0 degrees. This is some crazy historic cold for Texas and something they haven't seen in years. The coldest Arctic outbreak was 1899, and so some of these lows, I mean, obviously daily lows will be broken, but even some of those 1899 lows and probably isolated spots will be challenged with this event. I mean, this is some historic stuff for the Deep South as this continues moving on. Look at the single digits into Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, going into Alabama, into Tennessee. And here's your feels likes for, by the time Tuesday morning rolls around, that negative feels like temperatures, it extends even further south and into Texas, getting close to Corpus Christi by then. Below zero feels like in Corpus Christi. That is some crazy stuff as we go into, a good chunk of the southeast. But again, that sharp gradient of the southeast ridge will be a sharp cutoff of extreme temperatures from about a 50-degree swing, because you're just not going to get hit much for further in the southeast. But on the backside, like I mentioned, we have that another powerful storm that's going to be digging in, and this even potentially looks stronger than the first storm for portions of Oklahoma and the Texas Panhandle, going into portions of North Texas as well. So we could be looking at another freezing rain, more sleet, more snow by the time Wednesday morning comes, and that will just deepen even further. And this storm looks really compact, but it looks really strong. So that the math is really crucial with this storm on how far south it's able to go. And if it's going to be, a freezing rain, a sleet, or a very heavy snow. But it looks like the gradient sharp cutoff is right around North Texas. And so this banding could see some very heavy snow of 1 to 2 inch snowfall rates per hour at times during this event. But we could have a major serious ice storm in East Texas by the time we go into Wednesday afternoon. And then this will continue moving across into Arkansas. And then the second system with this ridge building, this will align a little bit further north as it shifts northeast. So that gradient will be about another 100 to 200 miles further north than the first system that came through 2 days prior. But so that'll push the freezing rain, the sleet further north in the interior regions of Arkansas, getting further north into Illinois by then, Indiana, going into Ohio, and then it'll be more all rain on the south side, and that will continue lifting off into the northeast. So a lot of this was snow, but this second system will be unfortunately more ice for West Virginia, Pennsylvania, going up the coast, and then very heavy snow for more of the interior regions into Illinois, into Indiana with this system as this continues lifting up. And you can see the low pressure where it traverses further inland with that southeast ridge building in, bringing the snow line more into Wisconsin, into Michigan, portions of Wisconsin here, and into Michigan. Just going to get heavy snow from this event by the time we go into Thursday night as this continues lifting off. But I kind of broke up the snowfall totals between Saturday morning and overnight on Thursday to kind of give you an idea of the breakdown. So I broke it up in the west, the central, and the east. Here's the west. We've got very heavy snow into portions of Washington and Oregon, getting into Idaho. Some of these amounts could be 1 to 2 feet as this banding feature traverses across into Utah, into portions of Wyoming, into the Four Corners regions, getting into the Texas Panhandle, possibly 10 inches, and say Amarillo, a good 5 to 8 inches in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But then we'll add to those with that second event. So we could have totals of anywhere from 8 to 12 inches with both systems. And then heavier amounts as you go into Oklahoma. And then as we go into the central look, then we'll start picking up some, 3 to 5 inches in northern Louisiana, a good 5 to 10 inches in Arkansas, and then anywhere from a foot, and then it really sharp gradient further north. It only goes down to 2 inches, and then like I said, there's a sharp banding into Mississippi, going into portions of western Tennessee, into Kentucky here. Places in Ohio could pick up 8 inches, 8 to 12 inches. Further north, say like Cleveland, could pick up 8 to 12 inches with this system as this continues moving across. And here's the look for the east. So we'll have that again, 8 to 8 inches in Ohio, and then very heavy snow. Look at the gradient. Look at the sharp gradient that we're talking about. So the math, a 50 to 100 mile gradient could make all the difference in the world as this continues lifting off. But it mainly looks like a further northern interior event as this continues to lift with the southeast ridge of anywhere from 10 to 15 inches in northern Pennsylvania, upstate New York, into Massachusetts, going to Vermont, into New Hampshire, going up into Maine, anywhere from a foot to plus from this system. And back in the central part, where they're going to be dealing with that, very Arctic air. You could pick up anywhere from 15, 18, 20 to 1 ratio. So a lot of snows in the deep south are 10 to 1. You usually get these wet, heavy snowflakes, but not with this system, not with the Arctic air. So this is like ski resort type snow. And that could pick up even, these are some of your more bullish outcomes, because if you factor in the higher snow ratios, some of these totals could be a lot higher than the 10 to 1. So that these are not out of the question. You could pick up anywhere from 12 to 18 inches in parts of North Texas, especially into Oklahoma. Upwards to 2 feet is not out of the question in certain areas if they do get the 15, 18 to 21 ratios like I'm thinking with both systems. Even into portions of Arkansas, these heavier amounts cannot be ruled out. The first amount I was showing are pretty conservative amounts. This would be more your bullish, factoring in the 15, 18, 20 to 1 ratios as this continues lifting off. But if you're not getting hit with snow, you're going to be hit with sleet. Further south, we're going to have that warm air aloft. That's where you're going to have probably some sleet into East Texas, going into portions of the southern Houston and Louisiana, Mississippi, going into Kentucky here, up the coast, a good chunk where that southeast ridge is going to be hit. So a good chunk of the northeast is going to be hit with sleet and freezing rain. So a good, this is going to be a major ice storm for a good chunk of the U.S. here with, snow, ice, and sleet. So I'll continue to update with this system. I plan on doing 2 updates a day until we get through with this system over the next several days with this historic event. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.